So after making that Zelda Death percent speedrun video, I thought why not do something silly and rank every single animation that plays when Link dies. An idea so random and just plain dumb that I don't think anyone in their right mind has ever even considered making a list like this. Some criteria I'll be using to judge these is how well animated is it, how dead does it make me feel, is there a big impact or is it really light, and are there any small details or nuances to it that make it feel better or worse. Oh, and when I say every death animation, I mean every death animation that I could find. Starting with... On a ranking list such as this, which are known for being subjective and highly opinionated, I think we can all come together and safely agree that objectively, the Zelda 2 death animation is the worst one in the entire series. First of all, it's not even an animation, it's just him and his hurt sprite, and it's coupled with this horrible flashing colored background that can possibly give you epilepsy. Dying in the game should not give me the risk of dying in real life due to epileptic shock. And because this game is so brutally hard, you're gonna be dying constantly and seeing it constantly. It's the worst. It's so bad.
Silly, Andy, that's not an animation.
It still beats epilepsy. Congrats to the mayor of Townsville for doing the one thing most of us have always wanted to do. Too bad it results in Link disappearing out of spite, which ironically looks funnier than the block crushing him.
Darn fairy!
Extremely boring because he spins around and just sits. Although it does remind me of that creepy music box statue in Undertale. The thing I really hate about this one is that it doesn't give me the feeling that Link is actually dead. He looks like he got really tired and fell over, but he's still conscious. The light's not fading from his eyes, and instead he's just thinking, "Man, I hate these games." Every character in Smash has always shared that game's iteration of the Star KO animation, but kudos to Ultimate for changing the spin axis. At first I thought this train exploding one was really cool, but then if you look closely, you can see Link is just sitting there like everything's fine, there's nothing wrong here. Plus it'd be really easy for him to just jump off the train, but you know, he's dumb and he likes the fire. Brawl had the worst screen smack Star KO in the entire Smash series, where they just kind of roll into it and then roll straight off. Remember when Link was in Soul Calibur? Technically speaking, all the Soul Calibur characters share the same death animations, but that's besides the point. Link's hand being forced into the proper death position looks so janky here, but I still kinda love it. What I don't love is that he's still breathing, so technically he's not dead. The most basic out of all the spinning deaths on this list, but I gave it brownie points because I like the implications of you literally turning to ash before poofing out of existence. I'm sorry, but Toon Link's expression when drowning in Smash Ultimate is atrocious. Not only does he look super mad instead of like he's struggling to survive, but when he finally goes down, his eyes are still open and his expression is just that of mildly grumpy. And I know that dying with your eyes open can be creepy. I've played Doki Doki Literature Club, but here it just takes away from the whole scene. Although there's minimal animation and it looks overall kinda boring, Link bouncing from the impact both looks funny and feels weighty. But he's still breathing, so he's not really dead now, is he? I love your Four Swords adventures, but there's just one thing that you did wrong. As much as I love the when they all fall to the ground, there's this single frame where they're all putting their hands down and crouching before they faceplant, which completely ruins the illusion that they're dead, and is made worse in multiplayer when you can still move around and smack the ground when you fall down, which is funny, but you're still not dead. I know this one's barely animated, but there's something really funny to me about just being flattened like a pancake onto the ground. Yup, technically Link does die in this show. Or at least he kinda dies. His spirit's still around and he reconnects with his body, but until then, the body is still kaput. But as for the animation, not only does he hit the woe is me pose, but you can see his mouth doesn't move with the rest of his body. It kinda throws it off. But for Deke back in 1989, this is understandable. Out of all the 3D Zelda games, I hate this death animation the most because it just looks so stiff and slow when he's going on the way down. Plus, somehow he has the mental fortitude to push his hand forward and avoid his sword when you're dead. You shouldn't be able to control yourself in this situation. Overall, it's just boring. I like how silly it looks in Melee when they smack the screen and flail their bodies as they go down, but it's really not that special. Why does he do that weird shimmy before falling forward? This one feels almost too fast, like he freaks out for a second and then he just floats there, which yeah, it's creepy, but is that it? This Link has the weakest crumple / stamina death out of the 3 in Smash Bros. I like his expression and the way that his body flows from knees to fully on the ground, but I don't like the way that he's holding himself up with his arms because it looks more like he's devastatingly sad as opposed to dying. I think this is the most obscure death I found for the list. But yeah, Link shows up in Scribblenauts Unlimited where he can be used and he can die. And what's funny is how accurate it is to some of his other deaths in the series, where he goes from his knees to his face, with the way his body rears back before falling forward being a nice touch, even if the whole thing is justifiably super stiff. Pretty good screen splats for regular Link in the later Smash games. I prefer his ultimate look more because I like the positioning and his facial expression, but they're both pretty great. The best things about young Link smacking into the wall in Smash Ultimate are the way his body completely flattens against it like a Wile E. Coyote cartoon, and that face of disbelief like he can't believe he just lost. The proper Soul Calibur 2 death, Link is here, Link goes down, and it looks super goofy with the way he spins around and puts his hands up in front of his face like he's given up on the world, but then it looks great with him going to his knees to the ground, keeping his arms to the side like they're supposed to be, but sadly I gotta dock points because he's still technically breathing. Once again, he puts his hands up in front of his face into the air like he just don't care, probably because he's dying, but I like the way that he staggers for a little bit before falling over, and while I still don't like the sword position, it does seem a little more believable with this animation than it did in the past. Toon Link has the best screen splat in the Smash series because of how contorted his body gets and that face that he's making. Why are you drowning the dog? Midna, help him! Love the way he plops onto his face at the end there with really good impact, but I don't like that his eyes are open, at least sometimes they are, and he kinda just comes off as a doll rather than a person, which is fitting. I like the way they grasp the air for help before they go down, and I like the expression on their face when they do go down, but best of all, I like that with Brawl Link in particular, you can see him gasping for air before he goes down, making it more believable. Ah, the proper drowning expressions for Toon Link in Smash Bros. I prefer his expression in Brawl where he's much more panicked and he goes down with a sorrowful face, as opposed to the Smash 4 version where he's accepted his fate. But they're both far better than that egregious Smash Ultimate version. The way young Link and Melee adult Link fall straight onto their back feels extremely realistic and natural, but what's unnatural is their eyes are still open in the Melee version, and why is your leg sticking up like that? Although this crumple is nearly identical to young Link / adult Link in Melee, what I really love about it is when you look closely, his feet actually rise off of the ground since he's so small, making him airborne for a few milliseconds before crashing onto his back, all while making a toon-rific expression. You see, this is how you do a funny 3D spinning death, complete with him falling straight onto his face. This one brings a lot of oomph, and I really like the way it's animated just completely falling onto the ground. But the one-footed wobble spin looks a little too silly to me, and I really hate that when Ravio's bird comes to get the rented items back, Link reaches his hand out before falling again, which implies that he's not actually deceased. I want to feel dead when I die. The timeless knees-to-face combo with believable speed, decent positioning, but where did his weapons go? Probably the most legendary death on this list for being so morbidly cinematic. I like how Link recoils against the incoming fire blast, and the ending with the ominous Majora shrinking into the fiery abyss before the happy mask salesman hits us with the "You've met with a terrible fate, haven't you?" But there's several gripes I have with this version. The firewall looks worse to me, Link looks worse here as he nonchalantly looks left and right with no added effects. I swear they messed up the sound design because his normally echoey scream sounds horrible here, and the happy mask salesman's message showing up in a box just throws off the cinematic nature and makes it look worse. And what the heck is this? Why is it here ruining the whole thing? This one's a lot like the Skyward Sword death, but I think it's a lot better because not only do you see more of a struggle on his face and with the way he swaggers back and forth, but if you look closely, you can see him subtly trying to raise his sword and shield back up before completely collapsing onto the ground. Even if he still does the weird thing of pushing his hand and sword forward, when in my mind, he shouldn't be able to do that. I much prefer this death over the normal one because not only can you see him struggling to hold himself up, but the way he just kind of flops on the ground afterwards is so believable. The agony on his face as he sinks is perfect, and I like that his hand reaching out reminds me of the Terminator. A vast improvement on the original version. I like the way that he kind of wiggles around before falling to the ground, and if you look closely, he subtly bounces back up after he hits the ground, really emphasizing the force of the impact. I don't know what to tell you, Link bouncing around and flopping onto his side like this just makes for a great animation when you die, even if it makes him look more asleep than dead. The struggle of him going from freak out to blackout is really good on its own, but the sound design really sells this one because not only do you hear him grunting as he's about to drown, but when he does drown, you can hear him gurgling in the water, just really adding to the effect.
Why'd you have to go and kill the dog like that? Who do you think you are? How dare you? Not even his tongue sticking out of his mouth like that's going to save this one. Shut up, Midna. I'm glad that you're stuck in the Twilight Realm.
One of my all-time favorite spinning deaths in the series because I really like the agonizing face that he puts on before he hits the ground. It perfectly encapsulates how Link is feeling, like this man is dead. Coupled with the sound design of the scream that he lets out as he's going down, it's just perfect. The thing that I like about the ship sinking is it's so dark. Seeing the ship go down like it's the Titanic and knowing that Link can't swim, so there's no way he's gonna get back to safety. It's terrifying to think about. It's too bad Link literally disappears when the animation starts. But it's the implied fridge horror that counts, right? Admittedly, this one's pretty high up because of my nostalgia for this game, but I just love that one impact frame where it has like the flash of light and it's just like, and he just falls straight onto his face, doesn't even try to stop himself, it's just immediate, it's so good. Immaculately fluid animation. The way he rears back before falling onto his face is superb, and he even makes a funny little face as he's falling, but I don't like how quiet Link himself is, and I'm still not the biggest fan of the single foot spin. Regardless, I consider it the best spinning death in the series. Sure, the moon looks more like it's surrounded by mud than fire at first in this version, but this version has the better flame wall, the working sound design, dimmer and more ominous coloring, and a way better looking Happy Mask Salesman message. But best of all, not only does Link recoil even further here, but he has this really cool blur effect, so it looks more like it's a dreamscape as opposed to just nonchalantly standing there like in the 3DS version. The way Link and his transformations arch their backs when they're being electrocuted before falling to their knees and then face is shockingly good. Except for Deku Link, whose face literally never changes in this game. While Goron Link sounds the best and has the best looking eyes. There are literally thousands of ways to die in these games and all of them are funny. Because the way Link crumples over and ragdolls all across Hyrule, especially down mountains, is just pure hilarity. Bro, this drowning animation is brutal. The way that he struggles to breathe before he actually succumbs and he flips over dead, it's like, whoa, that one's really dark but really good. This one's just as brutal as the original version, but I like it more because of the way he raises his hand up, making it far more dramatic. Death by Shock Therapy in Majora's Mask 3D does it so much more justice than the original. He literally jolts from the vaults before falling to the ground, and I love that his arms go out to the side more naturally. It's ironically a more lively death animation. I didn't even know this drowning animation existed until I started researching for this video, but my goodness does this one punch me in the gut. To see him splashing and freaking out, and then just to float back up, just his back exposed to the sky, oh my goodness, it is devastating. It makes sense that the most animated Link would have the most animation put into his death scene. And man, what a death scene it is, because you see this man struggling really hard before he finally succumbs, falls onto his back, and unlike the sequels, he has his eyes closed and an expression of he died a painful death. Some birthday. These last two are super similar, so real quick I want to give an honorable mention to Mario Kart 8 Link, where you can't actually die, but when he loses, he dies a little on the inside. An absolute classic death animation. I love that he goes from the knees to the ground. I love the weight behind it. The feel of you smacking the ground, you can just feel it. Thank you, great sound effects. I like that arm positioning. I like the facial expressions, except for you, Goron Link, why they have to ruin your beautiful eyes. Overall, just a magnificent death animation. But why is the world so dark when it happens? Like, I get he died and he's blacking out and everything, but did you have to make it so hard for me to see? Everything about this death is perfect. The weight, the feel, the sound design, it all comes together to make one of the most nostalgic and one of the most memorable death animations in the entire series. I love the way that he falls first to his knee and then all the way down to his chest and face, really emphasizing the struggle. I love the position of his arms because, as you know, I've been making a big stink out of that, and here it looks phenomenal. I love the sound, like Adult Link's grunts that he makes on the way down, which sounds like he is dying, and the thunk that he does when he finally hits the ground, and it just feels like a weight of 1,000 bricks crashing onto your back, made better when you think of it symbolically, like it's the entire weight of the fallen timeline crashing onto your shoulders, since dying in Ocarina of Time is what causes it. It is truly perfection. And the cherry on top, the fiery game over and the music just overemphasizing the whole thing. It is so good. I cannot express this enough. I love this game over screen. It feels like I'm dead. Phew, finally done, and I'm probably seen as a psychopath now because I just spent so long analyzing every Link death I could find. Please leave a comment about how wrong my opinions are and which ones you would place higher or lower. Also go and watch my speedrun where I try to achieve death as fast as possible in every game. That one's pretty great and really well edited. Or if you came here from there, hi, you have great taste. Please like and subscribe, watch some of my other videos, and have a great rest of your day.